The iPhone was used to shoot a weekend MV, and last year they attempted to shoot a blockbuster movie, or at least a scene out of one. Now, can the iPhone, specifically the iPhone 16 Pro Max, replace film cameras? Well, to find out, I pit my iPhone 16 Pro Max against my $8,000 combo of the Sony A7S3 with a 24-70 lens mounted on a professional gimbal. And for good measure, I'll put up our cheapest $800 Sony ZV-1 compact camera for the shootout too. Now let's find out how they fare. Now, over the previous episode of this new iPhone 16 series, I compared the iPhone 16 Pro Max against the 15 Pro Max. Now go check that episode out for the verdict after this video. So in this video, I'll be pitting the iPhone 16 Pro Max in an apple versus orange versus pear scenario against a professional Sony A7S3 camera with one of our best zoom lenses. Now if you don't know, the A7S3 camera was used in film before, specifically the sci-fi blockbuster The Creator from 2023. So it's a good reference on how the 16 Pro Max will stack up without involving the really expensive film cameras, which we don't have access to anyway. And for fun, I'll also put up the affordable $800 point-and-shoot Sony ZV-1 just for fun. Now, I won't talk about the features of the 16 Pro Max or the A7S3 and ZV-1. For those, you can watch the previous season of this Media and Tech Show. I leave the links to those videos in the description below. Oh, before I forget, do like, comment and subscribe to us, okay? So back to the comparisons. Now, these are all the tests that I'll be conducting in this video. Now again, in addition to this performance test, I also share with you my take on whether the iPhone 16 Pro Max can replace professional cameras or even a compact camera solely from its video capabilities. So be sure to watch all the way till the end, okay? But first, let's compare some typical shots that you probably take. We'll start with talking head shots. You see, here at Lens, we produce a lot of talking head videos. In fact, this one that you're watching right now is one. So I guess it's befitting to start here. But instead of showing them one at a time to you, well, I'm going to show all three at once, but not in any particular order. Now, can you tell which is which? I'll show you one at a time, full screen. This is A. This is B. And this is C. And here they are again, side by side. Now, which one is the iPhone? Well, if you guess C is the iPhone, congratulations. It's not hard to guess, right? The giveaway of the other two are the natural bokehs or background blurs behind the subject. Yes, for this test, I was using only the normal video mode on the iPhone, hence there wasn't any background blur. In this next test, let's make it a little more difficult for you by turning on the cinematic mode for the iPhone to get that background blur. Here, we are doing a comparison of walking shots, again in no particular order for the three cameras. Anyway, here are the three walking footages side by side. Yes, the positions of the shots might have changed. So again, which is which? Now this is A. This is B. And this is C. And here they are again side by side. So, which is the iPhone 16 Pro Max? Surprise, it's actually B this time. Now can you see what gives it away? Now if you cannot see, let me show you. Here, you see that the computational background blur isn't perfect enough to separate the subject from the background. But honestly, if I didn't tell you, would you have known? Next, let's compare some landscape shots. Now this one is simple enough. On the iPhone, I switch on the 0.5x lens. And on the A7S3, I use the widest lens that I have, which is the 14-24mm wide-angle zoom lens. And on the ZV-1, I zoom out to the widest focal length. And I just do a simple pan shot for each of the shots. So here they are, three of them side by side from the three cameras. Now can you tell which is which? Okay, for landscape shots, you need to see it on full screen landscape orientation. Now this is A. This is B. And now this is C. And here they are again side by side. So again, which is the iPhone 16 Pro Max? Well, if you ask me, it's not so easy to tell now, isn't it? The only one I can single out is the ZV-1, which, because of its limited zoom range of up to 24mm only, so the footage isn't as wide as the other two. Anyway, the iPhone is the second one still this time. What do you think of the 16 Pro Max landscape shot, especially with the new 48MP sensor? Next up, macro mode. Now admittedly, we almost never take macros in our clients' videos. So for us, this is purely for the sake of testing. But if you take a lot of shots of flowers or insect close-ups, right, this might be something important to you. But to achieve this, I needed to attach an extension tube to the A7S3 because the lens here isn't for macro. Anyway, here are how the cameras stack side by side. Now the cameras are placed on a mini tripod for these shots. So can you tell which is which? Now here they are individually. This is A. This is B. And this is C. And here they are again, side by side. So again, which one is the iPhone 16 Pro Max? Well, again, using the same logic as the previous shots, you probably can eliminate the ZV-1 in the center because natively it cannot do macro shots that well. But can you tell that the iPhone is the first one? Do you think the iPhone's macro footage look on par with the professional cameras? Next, we compare the shots in low light. Now this one should be quite obvious if you paid attention to our previous episode. But anyway, just for completeness, here are the night shots on an equivalent 24mm focal length on all three cameras. Here they are individually. Now again, A, B, and C. And here they are again, side by side. And here, in the same order of the low light shots, are the shots taken in this darker room. Again, in the same focal length of 24mm. Now anyway, if you're wondering why 24mm, right, it's because the iPhone Pro Max main camera and best camera is the 1x1 and it's on 24mm. So anyway, here are the three side by side again. And individually, this is A, here's B, and here's C. Can you tell which one is from the iPhone 16 Pro Max? Well, I think this one is obvious because of the small sensor, low light performance is not one of the forte of the iPhone, even for the Pro Max. The ZV-1 has a 1-inch sensor, so while it is better than the iPhone, it still cannot compare to the A7S3 full-frame sensor. And with the Sony A7S3, right, which is the king of low-light cameras in its range, there's really no fight. Next up, slow motion. Now, slow-mo is something we do a lot in our B-roll shots. Almost every time we shoot in 60 frames per second, which allows us to slow our B-rolls to half the speed for that cinematic feel. But here, for this comparison, we are going down to 240 FPS or 8 times slower. So, can the iPhone stack up to the professional A7S3? Now here are them side by side. And here they are individually. This is A. This is B. And this one is C. And here they are again side by side. Can you tell this time which is the iPhone's video? Now I think this time is quite obvious, right? If you chose B, you are right. What's the giveaway? Yes, it's the lack of bokeh in the distance. Now for the iPhone, it still cannot do cinematic mode with slow-mo. We can only do 4K 120 on video and ProRes log modes. So I personally think that the A7S3 wins this round. But wait, there's more! The ZV-1 can do this party trick of capturing at 960 FPS. That's 32 times slower or 3% normal speed. But there's substantial loss in quality when capturing slow-mo at this frame rate. Still, it's fun to see, right? Last test now, and we are comparing the stabilization of the cameras. Now, all three cameras here have some form of stabilization. The A7S3 has in-body image stabilization or IBIS. Combined with some zoom lenses which has lens stabilization, the A7S3 can reduce some jittery movements. But it is still not good enough. Similarly, since the ZV-1 is an entry-level camera, the stabilization isn't that good. This camera comes only with active stabilization or software stabilization. Personally, I don't think the shots are usable without them being stabilized in post-production. But the iPhone, wow, the stabilization is really some high-level sorcery here. And combined with action mode or software stabilization, the stability of the shot is crazy. So to allow the two Sony cameras to have a chance, we mounted them on the DJI RS4, which is a professional gimbal that reduces shakes, and the RS3 Mini, which does the same for the lighter ZV-1. Anyway, here are the shots of the cameraman running. And here they are again individually. Here's A and B. And now C. And here they are again side by side. Now, which is the iPhone's shot? Did you guess C? Well, if so, congratulations. As you can see, the iPhone wasn't even on a gimbal. And for it to produce such stable shots, I'm thoroughly impressed. So, what's the verdict after these 7 tests? Well, granted, there are a lot more comparisons that I could make. For instance, I can compare the S-Log profile for the Sony camera versus the iPhone's ProRes log. But then again, this will become an editing comparison, which isn't all that relevant. We can also compare other things like the battery life, their portability, the selection of lenses, and the ease of use of the new camera control on the iPhone Pro Max versus the shutter release on the cameras, so on and so forth. But for this video, I'm just testing the more everyday uses of the cameras. Features that you might actually use to shoot your personal, business or travel videos. Well, anyway, back to the verdict. I guess the iPhone 16 Pro Max and the Sony A7S3 are totally different genres of cameras. Yes, if we compare them in terms of performance, surely when it comes to natural bokeh and low-light performances, the A7S3 wins hands down. But the iPhone can also carry its weight in terms of stabilization and its macro mode. Well, compared to our 14mm lens at least. My point is this. Now, if you want to really shoot professionally and especially commercially where you are producing client videos, right, you probably need professional cameras like the A7S3 or something even more professional than this. But if you are solely shooting your own personal videos for social media or for your own keepsake, then the iPhone would do. So we come back to the question, can the iPhone 16 Pro Max replace a film camera? Well, my answer will be a resounding no. While the iPhone's ProRes log recording and the cinematic mode, they are certainly impressive, the small sensors, well, they still cannot defy physics. They just cannot produce natural bokeh and low light performance is still very bad. But if you are a beginner filmmaker or someone who are just starting to take on client shoots and you cannot afford your first camera and lens yet, then the iPhone 16 Pro Max is a very good camera to get. Plus, the iPhone can be so easily carried anywhere and really, the best camera is always the one that you have with you all the time, right? But don't forget the fact that the iPhone 16 Pro Max is a very expensive camera. At 2,500 Singapore dollars, you can already buy a respectable mirrorless camera and lens that will rival the phone's performance. So frankly, I find this phone very hard to recommend. Now, I have a use for it because I am in the video production line, but Like 99% of those who bought this phone will never use all the pro video features. And if you're seriously thinking of utilizing the pro video features on this phone, right? Well, be sure to watch the next video in the series where I'll cover on the best video use cases for this 16 Pro Max. For that, do subscribe and get notification by ringing that bell. I'll see you then.